It comes on a Tuesday, not a Friday, when strange things feel more possible, not a late October night when the world already feels slightly off. A Tuesday. Ordinary in every way that a day can be ordinary. Gray sky, lukewarm coffee, nothing on your calendar that matters. You almost don't pick it up. The envelope sits on the floor by the door for a full 3 minutes while you finish reading something on your phone that you won't remember an hour later. Then you pick it up because you're walking past it, and it's easier than stepping over it. That's the kind of morning it is. Everything decided by what requires the least resistance. Your name on the front. Your handwriting. You stop. Not your name typed or printed or written by someone who learned your name from somewhere. Your handwriting. The specific slant of your letters. The way you always make the loop on the Y too big. The slight pressure variation you've had since you were 12 years old, and your teacher told you to hold the pen differently, and you never quite fixed it. You wrote this. You just don't remember writing it. There's no preamble. No, you won't believe this, or I know this is strange. Just your handwriting, starting mid-thought, the way you always do when you write something you've been thinking about for a long time before you actually start writing it. The first line reads, "Don't take the job." That's it. That's how it starts. 3 words and then a paragraph break. Like you, like the other you, knew that 3 words would be enough to make you keep reading. And they are. Because there is exactly one job you are currently considering taking, and the fact that you wrote those 3 words to yourself across 10 years of time means something you can't yet name, but can absolutely feel. The rest of the letter is specific in ways that stop your breath. Not vague warnings. Not the kind of fortune cookie future telling you'd expect from something like this. Specific. Dates, names, a conversation you'll have in March that you need to handle differently. A person you'll meet at an event you haven't been invited to yet. And exactly what you should say to them. A number to call on a specific evening in November. Instructions written in the calm, deliberate tone of someone who has already lived through everything you are about to live through and wants to change exactly 3 things about how it goes. 3 things. 10 years. 1 letter. The first question isn't whether it's real. You know your own handwriting. You know the specific pressure of your own pen. You know the way you construct a sentence when you're trying to be careful, the long clauses, the pause before the important word, the way you repeat something twice when you really need the other person to hear it. This letter does all of those things. Every single one of them. There is no version of this that isn't you. It's real. You wrote it. Somehow, 10 years from now, you sat down and wrote this letter and sent it back to yourself, and it arrived on a Tuesday while your coffee was getting cold. The first question is something harder. If you follow the instructions in this letter, if you don't take the job, if you have the conversation differently in March, if you call the number in November, then 10 years from now you will be a different person living a different version of your life. And that person will not need to write this letter, which means the letter will not arrive, which means you will take the job. You will have the conversation the wrong way. You will not make the call in November, which means the letter will arrive. You sit back down at the table. The coffee is definitely cold now. You stay with the paradox for longer than is probably healthy. You turn it over from every angle you can find. You look for the version of it that resolves cleanly, that has a logical exit, that lets you make a decision without the decision eating itself. You don't find one. The paradox doesn't resolve. It just sits there on the kitchen table next to the letter, patient and circular and completely unbothered by your need for it to make sense. The second read is different from the first. The first time you read for shock. The second time you read for information. And the information is, the letter knows things that make your chest tight in a specific way. It knows about the conversation you had last week that you haven't told anyone about. It references it in passing, casually, the way you'd mention something to yourself that doesn't need explanation because you were there. Because you were there. It knows about the thing you almost did 6 months ago and didn't. It doesn't judge it. It just says, I know you almost did it. I understand why. What comes next is part of why. It knows you're going to read it twice before you believe it. It says so, explicitly, in the second paragraph. You'll read this twice. The second time, you'll be looking for the detail that proves it's fake. You won't find one. That's not because I'm clever. It's because I know exactly what you look for. You put the letter down. You pick it up again. Here's the thing about receiving a letter from your future self that nobody tells you. It isn't the paradox that gets you. Paradoxes are intellectual problems. You can hold an intellectual problem at a distance, turn it over, examine it from different angles without letting it touch you. What gets you is the intimacy of it. This letter was written by someone who has been you for 10 more years. Someone who knows every version of the thought you're currently having because they had it too. Someone who sat in whatever room they were sitting in 10 years from now and thought about this exact moment. You, at this table, on this Tuesday, with the cold coffee, and chose to reach back into it. They chose you specifically, not a younger version in general. This Tuesday, this moment, which means that 10 years from now, this Tuesday matters. Which means that what you do today, whether you follow the instructions or ignore them or spend the rest of the day trying to logic your way around the paradox, matters in a way that today did not feel like it mattered when you woke up this morning. You woke up this morning thinking today was nothing. The version of you who wrote this letter disagrees. You consider following the instructions exactly. Don't take the job. Have the March conversation differently. Call the number in November. 3 things. Finite, specific. You could do all 3. You could write them on a separate piece of paper, fold that paper, put it somewhere you'll see it every day until each instruction becomes relevant. You could treat this letter like a map and follow it exactly and trust that the version of you who drew it knew where it was leading. But here is what the letter doesn't tell you, and this is the part that stays with you longer than anything else in it. It doesn't tell you what happens if you follow the instructions. It tells you what to do, but not what doing it leads to. The version of you who wrote this letter decided you don't need to know the outcome, only the actions, which means one of 2 things. Either the outcome is something so good that knowing it in advance would change how you pursue it, would make you lazy or careless or certain in ways that ruin it, or the outcome is something the future version of you decided you're better off not knowing until you get there. Neither of those options is reassuring. Both of them are completely something you would do. You don't call anyone, not because you don't want to. You want to, badly, the way you want to tell someone when something enormous happens and the enormousness of it requires a witness. But who do you call? What do you say? There's a letter on my kitchen table, and I wrote it 10 years from now, and it's telling me not to take a job I haven't decided about yet, and I need you to tell me what to do. Nobody can tell you what to do with this. That's the part the letter understood when it was written. That's why it came to you alone, on a Tuesday, in a moment with no witnesses. Because this is not a decision that can be shared. This is a decision that has to be made by the person sitting at this table with the cold coffee and the specific handwriting and the 10 years they haven't lived yet. You put the letter back in the envelope. You put the envelope in a drawer. You don't decide anything tonight. You give yourself permission to not decide. The instructions aren't time-sensitive yet. The job offer is still open. March is still months away. November is further still. You have time. The future version of you accounted for this too. Probably. They know you need a night before you move on anything that matters. Here's what you know. Somewhere 10 years from now, a version of you sat down and decided that this Tuesday was worth reaching back into. That this specific moment in your specific life needed one piece of interference, 3 instructions, 1 page, your own handwriting, to go differently than it went. That version of you thought you were worth the effort of the letter. You don't know yet if you'll follow the instructions. You don't know if it matters whether you do. You don't know what the paradox resolves into, or whether it resolves at all, or whether the version of you who wrote the letter is sitting somewhere 10 years away watching to see what you decide. But you know one thing that you didn't know yesterday. Today is not nothing. Whatever Tuesday was before that envelope came through the door, it isn't that anymore. And somewhere 10 years from now, you already know what you decided. You just haven't told yourself yet.